President Trump says that I would squeeze Saudi Arabia to bring this investment into the US over the next 4 years to 1 trillion mark. So virtually all these oil shakedowns are going to come under the pressure of debts. This is not a good sign for any country. A major expenditure on Russia, plus this lowering of oil prices would put tremendous pressure on Mr. Putin and the Russian economy too. Mr. Trump's entire mantra during her election campaign was to somehow increase the output of the US oil. There are a lot of impact of this uncertainty in the global markets. Tariffs, no tariffs, the world is upside down in a real sense. And the possibility of a real recession or even depression is just around the corner, it seems now. Now, the oil markets is definitely to be impacted. Oil is the world's largest traded product. And if it is depression, if tariffs are there on the US, then it means that there would be counter-tariffs, and this is a non-ending process. Now, we could definitely see the impact on the oil market prices. I remember taking gasoline at my petrol pump, as you call it, or gas station, as they call it here in Toronto. The issue is that it was, I think if I'm not wrong, $1.35 per liter. Yesterday, I filled it up at $1.19 per liter. I'm not sure what is the impact of it in Pakistan, because that is pretty government controlled in that sense there. But here it is market controlled. And the carbon tax that the previous Trudeau government had levied on gas prices has been lifted. So from 135 to 1.19 per liter. And if this turmoil persists, the prices could go down. Virtually all the major investment banks and analysts are projecting that the oil prices could go down to even $50 a barrel. Right now, they are somewhere between $60 and $65 a barrel. So this is going to impact not only the global economy, but also the economies of the major oil producers who are dependent on oil earnings for their cash flow and for the running of the governments. There has been tremendous impact. Let's start with the US itself. Mr. Trump has started the tariffs, and then counter-tariffs are going to get into play. Let's see, and US is the world's largest producer. Not many people appreciate, especially way back home in Pakistan, but US currently is the largest producer of the world. At the same time, they are the largest consumer of the world. So Mr. Trump's major expenditure on Russia, plus this lowering of oil prices, would put tremendous pressure on Mr. Putin and the Russian economy too. Was being said by him was drill baby drill, so that he could increase the output of the US, and US become the real mover and shaker of the global energy market instead of the OPEC plus oil producers. Now, what could be the impact on this world's largest oil producer, the US? Tremendous. And in what sense I'm saying? That if the prices really start going down as it is right now, the carrots for the oil majors to drill and produce more would be withdrawn. And hence, that could impact not only the oil prices in the US, but the oil security of the US too. And US, it would be difficult for the US to maintain its supremacy as the world's largest oil producer. So that is one US. Let's get on to Saudi Arabia, the global energy heavyweight. Now, their budget is largely dependent on income from oil. Goldman Sachs is saying that it has in fact lowered its projection or forecast for oil prices over this year to $65 a barrel, to $55 a barrel. Now, if that happens, the Saudi budget deficit would double. And if the Saudi budget deficit doubles, it puts into question all those big projects that Saudi Arabia has announced. How would Saudi Arabia balance its budget? Balancing its budget is virtually now impossible for Saudi Arabia. It will have to debt finance it. At this moment, with its economy, it might be easy for it to finance its debt, but slowly and gradually over the years, it would get difficult for Saudi Arabia to finance its debts. So Saudi Arabia would be under tremendous pressure. Its major projects would be under big question mark, and the give outs to its people to maintain political stability in the country would also be under big question. In fact, they are now saying, Goldman Sachs, is that the budget deficit of Saudi Arabia could go up to $67 billion. Then Aramco's dividend. Aramco gives its dividend basically to the Saudi government and to the public investment fund, which then invests into different projects all around the globe and within Saudi Arabia too. Now, there is every possibility that this could be reduced by a third, the Aramco dividends. And that would again put into question all these mega projects that Saudi Arabia has been floating around. There would also be another question mark that comes into my mind at this stage. Saudi Arabia has already promised $600 billion of investments in the United States. President Trump says that I would squeeze Saudi Arabia to bring this investment into the US over the next 4 years to 1 trillion mark. With the public investment fund that Saudi Arabia currently holding around $700 billion, how would this 1 trillion financing into the US would come from? From where would it come from? It means that would again be debt financed. So the debt scare for Saudi Arabia is going to go up and up. There are many other issues. Even UAE somehow has promised Mr. Trump of an investment of roughly around $1.4 trillion. UAE economy is largely dependent on oil income. For them to squeeze out this 1.4 trillion would not be easy. That could mean that the lifestyle of the Emiratis and Saudis and the other Gulf sheikdoms could be under spotlight right now. And whether it could be sustained or not, that remains a big question. I understand that even Kuwait, for the first time, I think after 2017 or 18, it has passed a law enabling its government to borrow debts. So virtually all these oil sheikdoms are going to come under the pressure of debts. This is not a good sign for any country. If you permit me to go back to Mr. Shoaib's reign in Pakistan way back in the 60s, some of the very senior economic journalists have been telling me that Mr. Shoaib used to tell it. He was the finance minister in Ayub Khan's regime, and he came from World Bank. And he used to say that, look, we are borrowing this, and we'll be able to pay it off from investment that we are going to make into the industries and other different projects. Where do we stand? You know it well. I know it well. I don't need to comment any further on it. Iraq's infrastructure building spree may come under big question mark if the prices of oil go down. Nigeria is among the largest African producer. They perhaps would now need to reassess their development budget because of the lowering of prices. Venezuela, which holds the largest oil resources, something around 350 billion barrels of oil beneath its surface, is under twin pressures. It is facing squeeze from Mr. Trump. Already that has squeezed Venezuelan budget. They are, in fact, if I'm not wrong, President Maduro had to reduce public workers' hours so as to curb power consumption in the country. But lower oil prices would put pressure on Mr. Maduro to bring oil consumption in his country to even lower. They are not in a position to meet even their power requirements. Iran, our next door neighbor, I think if I'm not wrong, they had projected their oil earnings at around $64.38 per barrel. Would it be possible, and especially because of the pressure from Mr. Trump, they may not be able to produce that much? And even if they produce that much, they may not be able to get the cash flow that was estimated at $64.38. So that would put another additional pressure on Iran. So virtually everything from each oil producers, from US to Iran, everyone would be under squeeze, and the global oil markets would be really undergoing a major transformation. And the oil producers are already taking note of it, that what is ahead of them in these circumstances. Brazil is one of the largest producers in South America. Now they are also getting under pressure. They are getting under pressure because for 2025, Brazil had averaged the Brent price at $80.79. It is not going to be the same. So Brazilian budget would be under pressure. And another major pressure would be on Russia. Now, Russia had the average price of its budget for 2025, if I'm not wrong, it was $69.70 per barrel. That is not going to be maintained. Now, with war in Ukraine going on, a major expenditure on Russia, plus this lowering of oil prices would put tremendous pressure on Mr. Putin and the Russian economy too.